Look at this map for 1 second. If you saw it in a quiz, you might assume the colors were wrong. The yellow patch is a Spanish town surrounded by France on every side. Not near France, inside it. That sounds like a map error, but it is not. It is a real place in a mountain valley, with streets, houses, farms, and a normal local government. Zoom out, and the border looks normal. Spain is south of the Pyrenees. France is north of them. The mountains seem like the obvious dividing line. Then the clean line breaks. A separate Spanish pocket sits above the main border, as if one small piece refused to move. That is the mystery. Why did Spain keep one town while the land around it became French? The answer is not a secret tunnel, a military base, or a modern mapping glitch. The weird part is older, quieter, and much more precise. The answer starts with a peace treaty and with one legal word that turned into geography. Before that treaty, this valley was already useful. Cerdanya is one of the broad crossings through the eastern Pyrenees, following the Segre Valley instead of forcing everyone over the harshest peaks. From this area, several high passes could be watched. It was also not culturally empty space. The modern town sits in Catalonia, in a Catalan comarca, while the surrounding land is French Cerdanya. The state border cuts across a valley with a shared Catalan history. And the town itself carried an older memory. The Roman city of Iulia Libica, whose name eventually became the modern place name, was a capital of Cerdanya in antiquity. Archaeologists have also found remains tied to its Roman forum, so the old status is not only a legend in a later border story. That is the foreshadowing. When the border story arrives, the crucial point is not only where the settlement was, it is what kind of settlement people thought it was. Now jump to 1659. France and Spain signed the Treaty of the Pyrenees, ending a long war and redrawing parts of the border in the eastern mountains. In Cerdanya, the settlement transferred 33 communities to France. Quick versions of the story often say 33 villages, and that wording is where the famous explanation begins. But we should be careful with it. The town versus village story is the standard explanation, not a magic spell where one word automatically moved a border by itself. The better way to say it is this: Spain had a status argument. The surrounding places were treated as villages in the transfer, while this older town was treated as something different. France received the villages. Spain kept the town, because the town could be separated from the category being ceded. That is why the Roman clue matters. Iulia Libica was not trivia. It gave later writers and officials a reason to see this settlement as more than another small village in the valley. The exception then had to be made physical. Treaty language had to become markers, roads, municipal limits, and a shape that could be drawn on a modern map. That process did not end in one meeting. Later Spain-France boundary work, including the Bayonne-era treaties, kept translating old claims into surveyed lines and practical rules. Around a place like this, a border becomes something you can mark with stones, walk around, and enforce at road junctions. By the time the border was formalized on the ground, the enclave was no longer just an argument in a document. It was an administrative fact with edges. On paper, the enclave is small. The municipality is about 12.9 square kilometers, with about 1,561 people in the most recent official count. Small does not mean invisible. The main Spanish border is only roughly 1.5 kilometers away near Puigcerdà, depending on exactly where you measure from. That is what makes the map feel so strange. Spain is almost in sight, but the town is still separated by French territory. The distance is short enough to feel local, but legally it is still an international crossing. So the obvious practical question is not historical, it is daily. How do you run a Spanish town when every direct road out crosses France? For decades, the answer was a neutral road. Traffic between the enclave and the rest of Spain could use a route across French territory without being treated like ordinary international traffic. The road made the enclave workable without pretending the surrounding French land had stopped being French. Before Schengen removed routine border checks in 1995, that mattered. The point was not just getting across France, it was keeping the connection to Puigcerdà open. People could use that road for the enclave connection, but the road did not erase France around it. The route was a narrow legal corridor through a normal foreign landscape. And because roads are where legal oddities meet normal life, even stop signs became political. In the late 20th century, French authorities tried to control right-of-way where the neutral road crossed French roads. Local resistance turned the signs into a recurring dispute, remembered as the Stop Sign War. This was not a war with armies. It was a fight over whether drivers moving between the enclave and Spain should have to stop on the very road meant to keep that connection open. The solution was physical again. A viaduct was eventually built at one crossing, and a later roundabout solved another. Treaty awkwardness became traffic engineering, which is exactly what happens when a 17th century exception has to survive modern cars. That is the part a satellite view cannot show. From above, you see a dot of Spain and France. On the ground, you see road design built around an old legal exception. The town has another reason not to treat it like a cartoon border mistake. It holds the Esteva pharmacy collection, often described as one of the oldest pharmacy collections in Europe. The pharmacy is usually traced to around 1415. Its old jars, medicines, and prescription books are now preserved through the municipal museum, not operating as a normal shop. The collection includes ceramic pharmacy jars that make the age of the institution visible immediately. That collection is not just a tourist label. Those ceramic pharmacy jars and old prescription books are evidence of a town that kept records, served patients, and carried institutions across centuries. Even the scale helps. About 1,500 people is not a symbol. It is a community where border history shows up in school routes, shopping trips, taxes, road signs, and addresses. So the mystery has two layers. The legal layer explains why the enclave exists. The local layer explains why the enclave kept mattering after the ink dried. The valley was split by states, but it was not erased by them. Cerdanya remains a Pyrenean region with Catalan history on both sides of the line. France is France, Spain is Spain, and the municipality is legally Spanish. It just means the map is carrying more than one kind of history. Now rebuild the map from the beginning. First, the mountains suggest a clean frontier. Then the treaty carves up Cerdanya. Then one older town does not fit neatly into the transfer. The later surveys and road rules do the rest. They make the exception durable enough that a modern map still has to show it. France took the villages, Spain kept the town, and the strange outline became the record of that distinction. That is why the label on screen sits where it seems it should not sit. It is not a mistake in the map data. It is the answer. You cannot see a treaty category from a satellite view or an old municipal status in the color of a field. But borders can preserve those compromises long after the people who wrote them are gone. And once you know that, the strange little patch stops looking like an error. It starts looking like a sentence that survived for centuries.